At the beginning of the year, I fulfilled my dream and I shot a feature film. It felt great, but now I know that my dream is to shoot another one. For the first film, I did everything myself. So first I wrote the script. That's actually the reason why I want to make a movie. I didn't want to make a movie just to make a movie, so I didn't have to look for a subject to make a movie. First, there was the idea, something that was burning inside me, something that wanted to come out and communicate itself as art. That's why the medium of a movie is my tool and not the art itself. The art is the representation of this one idea. So I wrote the script, the heart of a film. In script writing, I look at the 12 archetypes, the 12 basic principles of creation that are synchronously found in everything. As soon as these 12 principles are repressed due to norms and education, they look for their neurotic pole and attract the opposite pole in the outside world. This is the duality in which we live. Every evolution happens in organized patterns. Everything around us are patterns that you just have to recognize. With the help of archetypes, you can recognize patterns, and when you recognize them, you can easily write good scripts. It is the old hero's journey that begins in mythology with the god of war, Ares, or Mars as we know it from astrology. This symbolizes nothing other than the departure, the courage of the hero to break free. Then the hero's journey continues through the other stations, which can be visualized very well with the archetypes. But about this later in a separate video from me. And here is perhaps the most important rule of script writing. One scene leads to the next. In other words, scene 1 is the cause for scene 2, and scene 2 is again the cause for scene 3. If you keep that, you get a good script, whatever it is about. However, there are many films where it looks like this. Scene 1 is the cause of scene 3, but scene 2 is in between for atmosphere or something. But at that moment, the viewers decide, consciously or subconsciously, that the movie is boring. And after the script was done, it even burned more inside of me. Now it had to take shape. This is the hardest time, but the most important in terms of manifesting my film. Because it's important that I see the film in the front of my inner eye over and over again. With time, everything becomes more detailed and clearer. But I have to imagine the film in such a way that it is realistic to realize. Only then I start to believe in it and lay the foundation of manifestation and not just dream of an ideal image. So in this phase, I wrote down the possible locations I need to tell the film. Locations that are unrealistic for my budget and without crew will not be used. But I believe that almost any story can be presented on different levels, in different forms, without changing the meaning of the story. For example, at the beginning of the film, my main character is living a monotonous life and has a boring office job. I don't need an office building with offices and work colleagues and computers to show the meaning behind it. I put him in a stinky smoking workshop with a laptop and made him an accountant. Micro budget, without detracting from the meaning of the story. Of course, when writing the script, you should have in mind the locations you have available and adapt it. But if you have a big story in mind and you think it's unrealistic to do it on a micro budget, then you're wrong. You can do it. Just rethink what's behind the idea, what principle you want to get across, and then choose a different dress for it without changing the meaning. This is of course the way of thinking of a filmmaker who is a filmmaker because he wants to express a certain idea or a feeling. So you can find a few ways to do that. But if you are a filmmaker for the sake of the movie, because you just want to make a big action movie, no matter what the plot is, then of course it is not the case. I had already visited and inspected the possible locations the previous summer. When I came back from Portugal to Berlin, where I live, the images in my mind's eye become even more vivid, as I now knew the locations. The great thing for indie filmmakers about the Algarve region in Portugal, which is called the European California, you get so many epic locations for free, a big advantage. My script was written in such a way that it only needed a few actors and a few lines to tell the story. Also a big advantage of a movie without crew and budget. Films that can tell their story with few words have a particularly strong impact, as I have learned over several decades of watching movies, but only if the rule from before is followed. Scene A leads to scene B. Each scene builds on the previous one. I really wanted to take the lead role for this film, so that I could show the actors of my future feature films something, to be able to provide examples of how I want something to be filmed. Because in acting I have one rule: feel the scene and react instead of acting.
There is only one way out, and I know it. I'm here to help you.
That's why I like to work with amateurs who haven't learned so much acting. So I started looking for the female lead, who at the same time is good with a camera, because she finally had to film my scenes. I posted in various Facebook groups my request that I needed a female actress for the spring of 2023 in the Algarve region in Portugal. I received many messages, but unfortunately nothing convinced me. Then I remembered a sentence my pretty wife Tanya told me when we met. When I told her about my passion about movies, it was in 2013. She said, "I can't imagine being an actress. It's not for me." Bam! That's it, it's her. Where the greatest fears lie, the greatest talents are usually hidden. Because where there is an inhibition, a great step in development is possible. And I was right. We did some photo shoots before and I knew how good she is in front of the camera. We even shot my short film, The Fusion, the summer before in Portugal, with her in the lead role and our 2 children with me behind the camera. Since the result was so good, I wanted to shoot another one afterwards, and it was her who encouraged me that I should start shooting a feature film. At that moment I decided not to make any short films, but only feature films from now on. That every evening I sat down and made my idea into a script for my first feature film, The Black and White Game. So we planned to come back in the spring just for that. Then it happened. In February 2023, we left Germany again for Portugal, where we rented a house and started to shoot our first feature film, The Black and White Game. For the role of the dealer in the film, I asked a friend, an Argentine baker, whom I also met there the summer before, because he reminded me so much of Harvey Keitel in Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver. He was happy and agreed. And it was a total hit too. I just told him not to blink with his eyes and to say the sentences as bored as possible. His takes were only recorded once. It was perfect. These 3 months were a great challenge. I did everything myself. My wife moved with me and our 2 children could sometimes stay with a babysitter, but often they were just close by. And why didn't I ask other people to help me? Probably because I don't have the confidence yet to get others on board. And this is something what I want to achieve with this movie. To have something in hand, to get a real crew for my next film. If you want to join me on this journey and get tips on running gun indie micro-budget feature filmmaking, please subscribe to the channel and leave me a thumbs up. And if you want to know right now my #1 rule for lighting a cinematic scene on a micro-budget, then click on this video. Thanks and see you soon.